morning, third graders. So today we're going to be talking about character interactions. We've been talking a lot about characters this week, why they do what they do, their motivations. You practiced having empathy for your character, feeling what the character feels. Well, today we're actually going to take our view of our character and we're going to widen it because we're going to be thinking about secondary characters. Specifically, we're going to be talking about interactions. So I want you to think of that word, interactions. Do you see the word inter or the part inter? I think of intersection, right? The word intersection is when two roads cross, and interaction is when two people cross. We're not having lots of people interactions right now, are we? Because we're trying to social distance. But when we're not trying to do that, there's a lot of interaction. And so I drew you a little visual so you could see. And today you could see that I'm thinking a lot about Joe and his mom, these two characters in our story, Save Me a Seat. And first I think about one character, Joe, and his actions. And Joe is in green. And then I think about mom, and mom is in orange. But just in real life, eventually those two characters and their actions are going to cross, they're going to meet. And so when that happens, when two characters and their stories intersect or interact, that is a great point for readers to stop and to do some thinking. And that's what I want to teach you today. That when readers are thinking deeply about characters, one thing they can do is stop and think deeply about character interactions. And this is how. First, you have to find a place where the stories interact, when the stories intersect. Two, you need to think about how one character's actions affects another character. And so I want to practice that with you today. So I'm thinking about the cafeteria scene where Joe and his mom are in the same place at the same time, right? And that tells me that is a good place for an interaction, two characters being at the same place at the same time. And I want to think about mom's actions and Joe's actions. Do you remember what mom did? She sees Joe, and even though she promises not to do anything like corny, he says, she looks over and she blows him a kiss. And this really does affect Joe. I want you to think about how Joe was feeling when that happened, right? And so the way we can think about it is we can think about it like this. When something happens, it causes blank to feel. And so I'm thinking this. When Joe's mom blows him kisses in the cafeteria, it causes Joe to feel embarrassed. It might also cause Joe to be afraid that if Jill and Sam Green were to see this, and he did, he would make fun of him. So did you see how I did that? I thought about two characters and a time in the story where their stories intersected. They were in the same place at the same time. And I thought, how does one character's actions affect how another character feels? So now I want you to try with Joe. We're going to flip it because that's the fun thing about interactions. You can switch it. So now let's think about Joe. And there's a place in the story where Joe, later that day where Joe and mom had another interaction. It was right after school. Do you remember? And she rolls down the window. She says, Joe, do you want to ride home? What does he do? That's right. He says, nope, I'm walking home. And so I want you to think right now, how do you think that made mom feel? Just say it out loud. Whisper it out loud to the air. How did it make mom feel? Yeah. I'm sure you probably said something like hurt or sorry or confused. Maybe mom doesn't even know why is it upset. And so I want you to use our words here again. this language to help you explain your thinking. So when Joe refuses a car ride with mom, it probably causes mom to feel rejected and so sad because she loves Joe so much. I'm sure it makes her feel, hurt inside in some way. And isn't that interesting that we affect each other. What we say and what we do, it affects another person, whether we know it or not. And the same is true for our characters. And so I want you to think about that today as you get into your book. I want you to think about character interactions with any two characters. And you do that by first finding a place where the two characters are in the same place at the same time and their stories intersect. They have an interaction. And then I want you to think, how does one character's actions affect how another character feels? And you can use language like this. When it causes blank to feel, right? And you can jot that down. And today we're doing it really simply. You can jot this on a piece of paper. You can jot this in your reader's notebook. You don't need to upload anything right now. I just want you to be practicing doing this work. And I also want you to think about this. I had a reading teacher once in college that said, to be an expert in something doesn't mean that you can do it well one time. It means you're the kind of reader who does this again and again and again. And so once you jot your thoughts today, I don't want you to forget about interactions and go on, with your reading. I want you to turn a switch on in your mind, turn that interaction lens on so you can continue to think about interactions of other characters throughout the story, because the stories we read are filled with interactions. I just chose Joe and Mom. I could have chosen Ravi and Mrs. Beam. That would be really cool, right? That would be juicy. I could think about Ravi's mom and Ravi's grandma and their interactions. So interactions are all over your stories. I'm asking you to put one of your interactions and thinking of that on paper, but I want you to be just turned on to interactions all in your story. Okay? So happy reading, everyone.